Imagine setting sail on a tranquil Caribbean voyage, only to be thrust into an apocalyptic nightmare. Today, we dive into Survivre, a fresh science fiction film that takes us on a roller coaster of suspense and survival. My name is Alex and welcome to my channel. One day, the family of oceanographer Tom, his wife Julia, and their two children, Casey and Ben, go on a journey on a yacht across the Caribbean Sea. While the father and son are busy fishing and Casey is engrossed in her gadget, Julia goes for a swim. Suddenly, something alarms her. She looks around, but the sea is still calm. However, she begins to feel a clear anxiety, as if something big and dangerous is circling around. At this time, the instruments on the yacht start behaving strangely, but Tom, busy with fishing, does not pay attention to them. Meanwhile, the woman feels worse and worse and eventually starts to drown. She screams, but the family does not hear her. The water seems to come to life and carries Julia further away from the yacht. When the situation becomes critical, Tom finally hears her voice. He rushes to the helm, and the yacht sails towards the drifting woman. Tom jumps into the water and, with the help of the children, pulls her onto the deck and revives her. The husband is angry, but the family has a reason to be happy. Today is their son Ben's 13th birthday. Tom lights the candles on the cake, and everyone congratulates Ben, who receives gifts, while Casey takes a family photo. At this moment, Casey's boyfriend calls her. He asks about the voyage, and suddenly, a strong and unexpected storm begins in the background. Casey is worried, but her boyfriend assures her that he is safe. Then the connection is lost. The daughter tells her parents about the strong storm on land, but then everyone feels some shocks. They go out on deck and see huge whale carcasses surfacing around the yacht. Tom explains that sometimes whales get off course due to storms, but these animals start pushing the yacht, and the man jumps into the water. He returns to the deck injured, having cut himself on the propeller. His wife stitches the wound on his shoulder, and he explains that the yacht's propellers are probably bent due to a tail strike, and they are unlikely to be able to sail away. Later, the girl tries to establish a connection, but there is no network, and the radio does not catch any signals. Tom starts calculating the water supplies. They will last for 4 days at most, but they are on a shipping route, so someone will definitely find them. However, threatening sounds come from outside, and when they go out on deck, they see glowing objects falling from the sky, landing closer and closer. Tom, at his own risk, starts the engine and manages to steer the boat away from another meteorite, but the engine finally breaks down. The next object falls so close that they can see that it is an artificial satellite of the Earth. A strong wind starts outside, and the instruments go crazy. The frightened family hides inside the yacht, which is tossed by the waves. They put on life jackets and prepare for the worst. When a strange ringing sound is heard, their noses start bleeding, and they feel nauseous. Tom tries to call for help using flares, but everything is in vain. The family barely survives the night, and in the morning, they come to their senses, rejoicing that everyone is alive. However, there is a huge hole in the hull, and it is unclear why they are still afloat. They go outside and freeze in astonishment. There is no water around, and their boat stands on a rocky elevation in the middle of a rocky desert, which the ocean has turned into. A little later, Tom encourages the family, saying that not all people could have died. The man takes measurements and realizes that the compass is lying. The north is not where it should be, which means that the Earth's poles have shifted, and this has happened before, although a very long time ago. It turns out that the sea has gone where there was land, and most likely, people have died. Casey cannot bear such a discovery and runs into the cabin, asking to be left alone. Julia goes to take stock of the remaining supplies, and Ben launches a bunch of colored balloons into the sky, hoping that the survivors will come to their aid. He also turns on the radio, sending a distress signal, and unexpectedly hears a response. It is the captain of a small bathyscaphe, Neo. They were at depth when the catastrophe occurred and managed to survive because of this. However, now no system works, and he hopes for help. According to his calculations, the sea will return in about a week, and it will be very harsh. So the man advises finding an elevation and trying to hold on there. Julia orders the children to pack their things. Tom directly asks the captain if he can save their children. He explains that the bathyscaphe is very small. Unfortunately, his partner died, and he can take only one person. But after Tom's persuasion, he agrees to take the children and gives his coordinates. The man plots a course on the nautical chart and promises to arrive at the location in a couple of days. The next morning, the family is almost ready for the journey. Tom goes out on deck and suddenly sees a man with a dog approaching. He goes to meet him and greets him friendly. Noticing that the man is injured, he offers him water. The man drinks it and suddenly hits Tom in the face. Julia sees this and rushes to her husband, while the stranger stabs Tom in the chest with a homemade spear. The dog does not let Julia go, and she herself freezes in horror, realizing that her husband can no longer be helped. She runs to the yacht. The man starts chasing her and wounds the woman in the arm. Nevertheless, Julia climbs onto the deck. The children hear her screams and come to meet her. Together, they barricade the cabin door. After that, Julia hides Casey and Ben, giving her daughter a flare gun and telling her to shoot only in the most extreme case. At this time, the killer tries to break down the door, which he eventually succeeds in doing. The woman hides in the toilet and patches her wound with tape. The intruder first goes to the galley and grabs food. It is clear that he is very hungry. Holding a can of food in his hands, the man begins to search the yacht while the woman arms herself with a kitchen knife. He enters the cabin, but Julia jumps overboard, hiding under the yacht. The killer looks into the hole but does not see her. However, the dog attacks the woman, and she has to kill it. The man hears the noise, goes outside, and finds the dog's corpse. At this time, Julia climbs onto the yacht through the porthole on the other side and ends up right in his arms. He knocks her down onto the couch and grabs her by the throat, intending to strangle her. The daughter sees all this and realizes that this is the extreme case. She opens the lid of the trunk and shoots the man. He is thrown aside, but the yacht catches fire from the flare. Julia orders the children to save themselves, and she makes her way to the galley. It turns out that the killer is only wounded, and he tries to attack again. The mother of the teenagers kicks him away, grabs the prepared bag, and jumps outside, where Ben finds his father's body. Casey also runs there and cries over the corpse. Julia kisses her dead husband but sees the killer jumping off the burning yacht and taking the children. The ship explodes behind their backs. The family runs through the desert and soon hides in a rocky canyon where a stream flows, but the water in it is salty and cannot be drunk. Casey shares a small supply of water with her brother, but he refuses to drink. The boy feels guilty because the killer probably came after seeing his balloons. Casey also expresses this thought, but her mother orders her to be quiet and justifies her son, saying that he did not want anything bad. She asks the children to gather themselves because there is a long journey ahead. And then she sees the man who is stubbornly following their trail. The people leave. In the evening, Ben finds the carcass of a hammerhead shark and tries to cut it up, but Julia sees the pursuer and orders the children to run. A little later, they find a whole field of once submerged toxic waste in barrels, but Julia drives the children straight ahead despite the threat of contamination, because the killer does not let up. The family walks along the bottom of the former ocean, making their way through piles of plastic and other waste. Soon, Julia notices that Ben is completely dehydrated. The daughter goes into hysterics because they will not be able to save themselves anyway, but her mother orders them to keep going. A little later, they find the fuselage of a plane that crashed into the sea long ago and climb into it to rest. Julia looks at the last family photo and tells about the first meeting with her father, which took place in her hospital, where Tom was taken with decompression sickness after an unsuccessful dive. The children cry, remembering their father and saying goodbye to him. At night, Casey wakes up from some sound and, going outside, sits down by the plane. Out of the darkness, the killer approaches her, not knowing that the girl is playing the role of bait. And when he is about to grab her, Julia attacks him and kills the man with a knife. When the sun rises, the family prepares to continue their journey and suddenly sees that the killer's body is gnawed, which means that there is something more dangerous than this person in the desert. They leave. Julia checks the route on the map when Ben rushes forward. His mother shouts, demanding him to stop, but the boy runs to a salty puddle and manages to drink a few sips. She pulls him away, but the boy feels bad. Soon, the people find plastic chairs and, arranging them into a shelter from the sun, rest. Suddenly, Julia hears strange sounds. She goes outside and sees something that makes her wake the children. Understanding the new danger, they rush to run. Soon, the people see a large ship ahead, around which lie broken containers and several people are walking. Julia shouts to them, but seeing thousands of huge crabs, they run into the container and close the doors behind them, not paying attention to the request for help. Then the three climb onto the container, and although the crabs manage to wound Julia in the leg, the family sits on the roof and watches from above as the crabs enter the container through a crack in the door and, despite the people inside trying to shoot them, kill everyone. The woman ties her leg with a scarf and passes out. In the morning, she wakes up alone from the strong wind and, in horror, begins to call the children, but it turns out that the crabs have gone further. And they climb down to find food and weapons. Julia cauterizes her wound while Ben checks the found supplies in the container. They find some water and food, and in the pocket of one of the dead, Julia finds a radio and calls Captain Neo. He responds and says that he was also attacked by arthropods from the depths. According to all signs, the sea will return very soon, which is why the creatures have crawled out. Julia asks him to save her children, but she does not know where to go because she lost the map. Then the man fires a flare gun. Ben notices the direction, and the family hurries in that direction. Soon they see a yellow submarine in the distance, but it is very difficult to reach it due to the relief of the former seabed. Casey does not like her mother's words about saving the children, but she does not want to answer and drives the family forward. They have to make their way through a canyon contaminated with toxic waste, and in one place, they are caught in a rockfall, and Julia is cut off from the children. She orders them to keep going, and when Casey refuses to do so, her mother asks her to save her brother. Casey and Ben get out of the canyon and run to the bathyscaphe, but there is no one inside. And suddenly, the wounded Neo comes out from behind the boat. He confesses that he has no chance of salvation and orders them to climb inside, but Casey returns for her mother, who is just shooting at the appearing crabs. She has almost run out of ammo. When Casey, climbing onto the rock barrier, reaches out her hand to her mother, they manage to run to the bathyscaphe and climb inside while Neo dies in the claws of the approaching crabs. The family climbs into the submarine when an ocean wave appears from behind the hill. The water picks up the underwater boat and drags it over the rocks, and before Julia's eyes, everything that happened in the last days flashes by. Coming to her senses, she discovers that the vessel is standing still. Julia opens the hatch, and the family finds themselves in a ruined city where the wave has brought them. The film Survivor had an intriguing premise but failed to meet expectations due to several factors. Despite the exciting concept, the film did not achieve significant success due to various mistakes made by its creators. The story is not fully developed, and the narrative ends abruptly at a crucial point, leaving viewers unsatisfied. Subscribe to my channel. Don't forget to like the video and also write in the comments what you think of this film. And with you was Alex. See you very soon.